Welcome to the Voice of Truth, Jim Moore. And I tell you what, I've enjoyed the week. Okay, I hope you have. But I really miss Don and Jeff. I miss those guys. I hope they can get back with us. I'm sure you probably miss them too. I like the dialogue here that we have. We've been talking about this blindness. I hope you've followed along that God is not making people crippled. The reason people are born crippled is because we live in a fallen world, if you will. I got to think of another way to word that. Sometimes people are born blind. Sometimes people are born with no legs, and there's all kinds of, we call them birth defects. God is not into defects, but perfection. So hopefully we covered why and what God was doing here in John chapter 9. And we talked a little bit about I am the light of the world, and this being a saying that come from Caesars and the god Apollo. But here's this man, and we talked about this Wednesday, who used to sit and beg. Now, he can't go because he can't see, so that leaves him in a place of just begging. And Jesus talks about this works, and we know the law, Mosaical law, there's no working on the Sabbath. Now, boy, that would be something to think about right there too. And we can, we won't chase that rabbit, okay? So the people begin to wonder about this guy. Was he really blind? Was that him? Well, they know because he didn't have eyes. Now he's got eyes. Now he can see. So the Pharisees begin to investigate. They find out he did it on the Sabbath. There's division that comes in. Some of the people said if he was a sinner, he couldn't do this. Some said, well, this man doesn't keep the Sabbath. He's not from God. There was division. They asked the man that was blind, who is he? He's a prophet. And then the Pharisees had already put an order out. Anybody that declared that or acknowledged that Jesus was Messiah would be put out of the synagogue. They go to his parents. His parents says, yes, he's our son, but he's of age. Ask him. That's kind of where we were. Let's see what the story holds for us. A second time, they summoned the man who had been blind. Give glory to God by telling the truth, they said. We know this man is a sinner. They're talking about Jesus. Just give glory to God. Tell the truth. This man's a sinner. He replied, whether he is a sinner or not, I don't know. One thing I do know, I was blind, but now I see. Have you ever had that moment? I'm telling you. I've told you this story before. I'm there in the doorway between the living room, going back into my bedroom, and I just hear the Lord speak into my heart. And then he began to open things up. I began to truly, for the first time, see, and I was kind of the same way. All I know is I didn't even know I was blind. You don't know you're blind until you see. All I know is I was blind. Now I see. Then they asked him, what did he do to you? How did he open your eyes? What did he do? He answered, I've told you already and you didn't listen. Why do you want to hear it again? Do you want to become his disciple too? Isn't that a good question? Let me go read this out of the King James. I like that right there. That's in John 9:27. He answered them, I've told you already and you didn't hear. Wherefore would you hear it again? Will you also be his disciples? See kind of the clarity how the NIV brings that out. Do you want to follow him? Two, I mean, what kind of question is that? Is that a sarcastic question? Is that a poking fun back at you question? Is that a legitimate question? Are you guys interested? Has this miracle caught your fancy here? Do you want a meeting? Do you really? Or, you know, I know how you are. You want to follow him too now? Is that what you're saying? Yeah. Which one is it? How do you read it? And see, I love coming into these kind of sarcasms sometimes, or maybe they're not sarcasms. How do you read it? How do you take it? Jesus would ask the rich young ruler one time, how do you read it? The greatest commandments. How do you read it? I will ask you, how do you read it? Is this sarcasm? Are we allowed to think and ponder on this? Verse 28, then they hurled insults at him and said, You are this fellow's disciples. We are Moses' disciples. So there we kind of answered. You are this fellow's. We're not even going to say his name. We are Moses's. We belong to Moses. We know Torah. We know law. We know the rules, buddy. We know that God spoke to Moses, but as for this fella, we don't even know where he comes from. As for this fella, we don't even know where he comes from. We know God spoke to Moses. I mean, isn't it amazing? You know who this fella is they're talking about? This is the Word become flesh and dwelt among us. This is, in the beginning was the Word. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. And that same Word didn't become Scripture. The Word didn't become Bible. The Word became a man and dwelt among us, and we beheld His glory as the only begotten of the Father. To them, He's just this fella. We know Moses. Moses told him, there's another coming that'll be greater than me. But they're blind. Now, this guy started out blind too, and he's a beggar. And see, Jesus is not doing this really to try to cause division. He wants them to see. And I know in our minds we all know He does. Jesus wept over Jerusalem. Oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem. I would have gathered you as a hen gathers a brood, but you would not. Missed the day of your visitation. He wept. They hurled insults. You are this fellow's disciples. We are Moses. We're disciples of Moses. We know God spoke to Moses. For this fellow, we don't even know where he comes from. The man answers, now that is remarkable. You don't know where he comes from, yet he opened my eyes. Let's read this out of King James. The man answered him, verse 30, and said unto him, why, herein is a marvelous thing that ye know not from whence he is, and yet he hath opened my eyes. See, I kind of like the NIV on that. Let me read that again. This man answered, now that is remarkable. You don't know where it comes from, yet he opened my eyes. You don't know where he comes from. Thank God those things. I love those things. We know that God does not listen to sinners. He listens to the godly person who does His will. Nobody has ever heard of opening the eyes of a man born blind. Nobody's ever heard of it. It's never happened before. If this man were not from God, he could do nothing. To this they replied, you were steeped in sin at birth. How dare you lecture us? And they threw him out. Let's go back to King Jimmy here. Now we know that God heareth not sinners. But if any man be a worshiper of God and doeth His will, him He heareth. Since the world began, was it not heard that any man opened the eyes of one that was born blind? If this man were not of God, he could do nothing. They answered and said unto him, Thou wast altogether born in sins, and doest thou teach us? And they cast him out. You see, this was kind of their thinking, wasn't it? Because they had coming around judging. Oh, this guy's born blind. Something has happened. Have you ever been around anybody and maybe something is happening in their life? And the good Pharisee will say, well, I know why. He's a sinner. I know why his kids are sick. They're because his mom and dads are sinners. They didn't do the will of God. I know why that kid was born with autism. Because they're sinners. The parents were sinners. That's why this question, that's where we came from. That's where it started out. And now after all of this dialogue, we finally get to what the Pharisees are thinking. The Pharisees had it all divvied up. Okay, my life is good. I've got all my fingers and toes. I've got my eyes and my ears. I can see good. I must be do good. My parents are good. But if somebody over here is born with a birth defect, it is God punishing them. There's sin somewhere. Right? This is God's punishment. And they finally, through the frustration, through the argument, through the dialogue, they finally get right to the point. We know you was born in sin. You was born blind. That was the proof. We knew it. It's settled. We know how God is. This is how God is. He punishes the sinners. This is who God is. He punishes that wrongdoing. And you know, this kind of doctrine is still preached in the church quite heavy. Even my own family are told, boy, God is really going to come down on you if you don't go do your duty and do all of these, whatever the duty is, whatever the duty roster is of the day, I guess. That God is really going to get you and He's just waiting. He's drew back and He's ready to whack you. See, that's what this is. And this Pharisee mindset, this simplicity mindset, loves to divide it up. Okay, we're the good ones. We got it all going on. You're the bad ones. You don't have it going on. Jesus came for judgment. Let's try to read a little bit more. They threw this guy out. Threw him out of the synagogue. Jesus heard that they had thrown him out, and when he had found him, he said, do you believe in the Son of Man? Jesus gets word that they have thrown the guy out, and he found him. What a statement. Let's read this out of the King James. Jesus heard that they had cast him out, and when he had found him, it's pretty plain. Notice that. The guy's born blind. Jesus makes spittle and mud. Go wash in the pool of Siloam. Before the guy just sits and begs, and now he sees. Jesus makes the declaration, I am the light of the world. What is this light going to do? This light is we're going to see things as they really are, but more than that, we're going to see who God is. The revelation. And when this man is cast out of this religious Pharisaical mindset, we do no work on the Sabbath. We know how God is. God divides up. God punishes the sinners. We know how God is. We've been versed in the law of Moses. But as soon as he's thrown out, Jesus seeks him out and finds him. Do you get that? Jesus finds him. Let me tell you something. Jesus finds us. He's the shepherd, right? We're going to come right into John chapter 10. And John chapter 10 is going to tell us that he leaves the 99. You reckon he's referencing back to this one blind guy? And he leaves the 99 and goes into the wilderness. He goes into the blindness, into the lostness, into the idleness. We're sitting there. We're doing nothing but begging. And Jesus finds the lost sheep and there is rejoicing. There is worship. There is praise. Do you believe in the Son of Man? I wonder when Jesus, do you draw pictures in your mind? Do you think Jesus is smiling when he asked this? I know when you see it in the movie or something, and and I just picture that old show, and I just see the stoic face of Jesus who never smiles, and I want to erase that picture. I just see Jesus smiling from ear to ear. In my character of this kind of story, do you believe me now? Do you believe me, buddy? Arm around him, loving on him a little bit, pulling him in tight, Do you believe me? Smiling. Do you believe in the Son of Man? And this guy kind of looking up, because he's got fresh eyes. He's got fresh eyes, right? New eyes. He's seeing everything for the first time, and he looks up, Son of Man. This is Ezekiel language, right? We were talking Messiah, and now we're putting together as Messiah, Son of Man. And he asked, who is he, sir? He's very reverent here. He's very humble. Who is he, sir? The man asked. Tell me so that I may believe in him. And Jesus just pulls his face right into his, and he says, you have now seen him. See, they're looking eye to eye. He's the one speaking with you. Son of Man. You mean the one Ezekiel talked about? The one that Daniel talked about? The one I've been hearing about? That's the Messiah, and you're it? And I had never even laid eyes on you because I had never seen you. I was just there, and I was just blind, and I couldn't see, and somebody put mud in my eyes and told me to go wash at the pool of Siloam. I washed, and boom, opened up. Well, there was nobody there to give praise and honor and glory to. I come back, and I'm seeing. I don't know who did it. I don't know what he looked like. I've never laid eyes on him before. And now I'm looking at him face to face. Jesus says, you've now seen him. In fact, he's the one speaking with you. And the man said, Lord, I believe, and he worshiped him. Oh yeah. Jesus says, for judgment, I've come into this world so that the blind will see, and those who see will become blind. Again, become blind so that it will be evident, so that it will be made known that they cannot see, so that they can ask, all of it for judgment. Another way to look at that word there, justice. For judgment, I'm coming into the world, not right or wrong. I'm coming to make things right. I'm coming to heal the brokenhearted. I'm coming to set the captives free. I'm coming to find those that are lost. I'm coming to heal that bruisedness. I'm coming to bring you who were outside of community, who could not be inside of community because you were blind and because you were outcast and because the Pharisees says you can't join our community because you're a sinner. Isn't this what the church wants to do? You can't join our community. You're a goat. You're not one of the elect. You're one of them. You're an outsider. You're not one of us. Your name's not written in, and they want to divide. And Jesus says, I come to include and to bring you back in. Now, in this inclusion, what it's going to do, it's really going to bring judgment. It's going to expose the hardness of their hearts, who want nothing to do with this inclusion. We've got this man that is born blind. We've got him in a nice category. Sit over there. You're blind. You cannot see. Stay over there. Stay in your lane, buddy. Jesus says for judgment, or we could say it this way, for justice, I am come into the world. What is this justice, this reconciling, this making things right? I'm going to bring you back in. Isn't that what he does with the lost sheep? This is an extenuation in John chapter 10 of John chapter 9. He's going to be telling these parables here of this same story. It's what Jesus does. It's a Hebrewism. They tell it over and over again, usually more than once, usually 3 times. Hebrewisms. So he's telling it now, and he's given more instances, telling these parables. But he's telling this story, then these parables to go with it. How this 99 sheep that's been excluded, that's been lost, maybe it's been cast out, I'm going to go find it and bring it back. And we're going to have a party. We're really, we're really... when I say that, and you go into John 10, and you're like, well, that's not in John 10. If you go read this in with the, like if you could find this in line when Jesus is talking, I'm the sheep, I'm the shepherd. Because, we got John's gospel. You got the synoptic gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And you will see that's kind of right in line with this story here. Okay? Some of the Pharisees are with him. So there's still some Pharisees. I'm back reading these verses. Who were with him heard him say this. And they asked, are we blind too? Jesus said, if you were blind, you would not be guilty of sin. But now that you claim that you can see, your guilt remains. Your guilt. In other words, you're not understanding who Son of Man is, who Messiah is. You're not understanding who God is. He didn't come to exclude. He came to heal. He came to draw back, to go into the community. And then let's just go on and read. I got just a few minutes here. Very truly I tell you, Pharisees. Remember, they were there. Anyone who does not enter the sheep pen by the gate, but climbs in some other way, is a thief and a robber. The one who enters the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep listen to his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. And when he has brought them out of his own, he goes on ahead of them, and the sheep follow him because they know his voice, but they will never follow a stranger. In fact, they will run away from him because they do not recognize a stranger's voice. Jesus used this figure of speech, but the Pharisees did not understand what he was telling them. Therefore, Jesus said again, remember the Hebrewisms over and over. Very truly, I tell you, I'm the gate for the sheep. All who have come before me are thieves and robbers. Now, who were they referencing came before him? Moses. They just said we're Moses' disciples. Not understanding Moses made Moses a thief and a robber. All who have come before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep have not listened to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. They will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief cometh only to steal, kill, and destroy. I am come that they may have life and have it to the full. I'm the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The hired hand is not. You see, he just on and on and on. I'm the good shepherd. I know my sheep, and my sheep know me, just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father, and I lay down my life. See this, again, they don't know who he is, so therefore they don't know who the Father is, so therefore they're blind, therefore their sin. And what was their sin? Their sin was not recognizing who he was. It wasn't them going to bars and cussing and all of that. And he says that they would be saved. Saved from what? I mean, where did we read that verse? This goes back to verse 9. I am the gate. Whoever enters in through me will be saved. Again, saved from what? Go to heaven when you die? What was their whole problem? They were blind. They couldn't see. What was their sin? Their sin was they didn't recognize who the Son of Man was. They were blind. So what Jesus does in this whole story is he takes somebody who is blind and the Pharisees who are not blind. And he makes this guy who is blind see, and in this guy seeing, it makes these guys, because of the biases of their heart, because of the hardnesses of their heart, now they cannot see. And they had already come in and said, anybody who acknowledges Jesus as the Messiah will be put out. And now Jesus does this work. And you remember, this is coming off of the very title that he gives them, that is against the Roman Empire, that is against the God of Apollo. And now Jesus stands up and says, let me tell you something, I am the light. And what his light does is shows us the true condition of the biases of our own heart, the prejudices of our own heart. We were satisfied as long as the blind man stayed over there. But now that he is healed and included into back into our society and community, we cut him off again. Jesus finds him. And Jesus goes on and Jesus talks about the sheep. And I know our chosen and election friends will say, see, my sheep know my voice, and he's got his special and you know, his special few. Let me tell you something. He talks about this right here. I have other sheep. Because they were claiming, the Jews were, that we're the sheep. And he doesn't deny that. But he says, I got others. I'm going to get them too. And man, it's just a circle that a number of people that John in his gospel or in his book of Revelation says that it is a number that no man can number. When we can see that. So John chapter 10 is just an extension of this story. And it just goes on to say that. And let me read this. And I'll close right here. I have other sheep that are not of this sheep pen. I must bring them also. And see, there wasn't but two, Jews and Gentiles. I got other sheep. Wow, Jews and Gentiles, there you go. They too will listen to my voice, and there shall be one flock and one shepherd. That's what I've been saying, one flock and one shepherd, right? The reason my Father loves me is that I lay down my life, only to take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down of my own accord. I have authority to lay it down and authority to take it up again. This command as I've received of my Father. The Jews who heard these words were again divided. Many of them said, this guy's demon-possessed and raving mad. Why are we listening to him? Another said, these are not the sayings of a man possessed by a demon. Can a demon open the eyes of the blind? I just love the controversy in all of that. Anyway, guys, I hope we brought a little light to that. I hope you'll think about it, maybe see some things in a different light. I hope. That's our goal here on Voice of Truth. I put a new sign up. Welcome to the show. Got a bear head over there. The bear's not real. I just wanted to say that. The other side of them's not on the other wall. Beaver pelts are real. Cast iron skillets are real, if you can see them. Anyway, guys, I've had a great time. I hope you have. And keep tuning in. We appreciate it. Lord willing, we'll have our seats filled next week. Until then, Lord, richly bless you all. God bless. Don and Jeff and myself, we really want to thank you guys for tuning in. You don't know what it means to us to have you guys listening. The one thing that you could do to help us out is hit that subscribe button. Leave us a comment. Ask questions in the comments if you want. I am going to leave a link. I'll post it down below for our church services on Wednesday and Sundays. I put those on a different YouTube channel. So I will share that with you guys, give you the link so you can go see what time. We would love to have you come and join us. And we just love putting out this voice of truth, having our discussions. What you see is what you get. We try to put them out every Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays at 9 a.m. I will tell you, I'm a full-time pastor, but I also work full-time. Jeff works full-time, so it's hard for us to do those things all the time. But again, we're so thankful you tune in. Thank you for all the subscribers. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button. You can hit the notification button. You'll know when they're coming out. And guys, again, we are so thankful that you're tuning in. Man, thank you so much. We will keep bringing this stuff to you. And we will see you again. Lord bless.